Welcome back everyone for another video. Today I want to go into my top decks going into the BT10 meta as it is just around the corner and I'm very excited for this upcoming format. Let's begin. Before we get into the top 5, I want to go over 3 honorable mention picks. First up is we're going to have Black War Greymon. Black War Greymon I think is a very strong anti-meta pick that could really disassemble Crossheart, as it's a very hard counter to that deck, as it could easily clear 2 Tamers at any given time, but I think it does still have some struggles against some of the other matchups in the metagame, so it will not quite make the top 5 yet. Another deck is Jasmine. Jasmine GX is a very powerful boss monster for the Jasmine archetype. The new support is incredible, but the deck doesn't really do anything until it reaches its level 6s. And because of that, I think it might struggle to play out the mid game against a lot of decks because of the lack of interactivity the deck really has until it reaches its thresholds of level 6 and level 7. And finally, for honorable mentions, I just want to bring up Alphamon. Alphon I think might still easily be a top 5 contender, but we don't have confirmation whether or not English meta will receive the Doro Greymon hit that Japan has gotten, which has pushed a lot of people away from the deck in the current format. And if it does get hit, it really won't be as powerful in this format. So until we know for certain if that nerf is happening, that deck isn't quite a top 5 contender. So beginning our top 5, I want to go with a deck that a lot of people are really undervaluing in this upcoming format, and that's going to be Blue Flare. Blue Flare is a very strong mid-range strategy that attempts to stun out the board, get a couple multi-swings, and eventually win a game of attrition through drawing an excessive amount of resources and playing a lot of cards for cheap or free using their Blazing Memory Boost and their Gaussmon Rookie. They also constantly are stunning your board while doing this, making it incredibly frustrating for you to fight back against them. The deck has a lot of tools that really enable it to play a really strong mid-range strategy. It's definitely something that you should be looking out for in the upcoming format, and we're just waiting for somebody to crack the build that makes blue the next dominant deck of this upcoming metagame. For my number 4 pick, I want to go over a deck that's been a constant menace in the Digimon TCG, and that's going to be Security Control. Security Control is always good in any format where you're dealing with stacks. This format that's upcoming has a little bit of answers to Security Control in the ways that they can present threats straight from hand as opposed to having to slowly build it up in our raising area. But it is still a menace against many decks in the game, and just its freedom of deck building, allowing it to adapt to any given metagame or format, really solidifies this deck as something that's always going to be a menace in the Digimon TCG, and I don't think that's going to change going into this format, so that's why it gets my number 4 spot on this list. For my number 3 pick is a deck that I'm the most excited about in this deck, and that's going to be a deck I've talked about multiple times on this channel. That's going to be Minerva Loop. Minerva Loop is a incredible combo / control type deck where you can get extensive amounts of memory, gaining 5 memory multiple times in a single turn to develop board, push for lethal, any combination of threats and control options that allow you to secure a board position and end up winning the game from there. This deck is definitely going to be one of the more skill testing decks of the format, so it might not have as many tots as other decks in the top 5 list, but for the proven purple players, this deck is going to be an absolute house of a deck. In the right hands, this deck might even be the best deck in the game, but there is definitely a skill cap on this deck that makes it very challenging to secure wins in every single matchup. For number 2 on this list is going to be the most hyped deck going into the BT10 meta. That's going to be Crossheart. Crossheart is a very powerful, robust strategy that has a lot of different tools to handle any given situation. It's quite fast, as most of its lines are either rookies, champions, or cards that reduce their cost to 1 or 0, which means this deck has a constant stream of advantage and aggression, along with Cross 4's ability to draw you multiple cards in your turn, while also swinging with Rush and Piercing. This deck just has a constant stream of threats until it ends the game. It also gets to play the extremely powerful Sunrise Buster, which is very good at dealing with a lot of mid-range to high-end threats. This deck has just everything it needs to defeat any matchup, and just its well-roundedness against any kind of deck is why I think it reserves its slot as the second best deck in this upcoming format. But for our number 1 deck is a deck that's already been terrorizing the BT9 meta. That's going to be Metal Garurumon X. I don't think this deck is going anywhere. I don't think it's falling from place at all. This deck just has one of the most streamlined, aggressive game plans the Digimon TCG has ever seen. It could wipe out 5 of your security as early as turn 2 if it gets the perfect setup for it. This deck is just an absolute menace. Because of this deck's unparalleled aggression, nothing really stops this deck except for just itself slowing itself down or just very powerful security bombs, which do require just a little bit of luck from the opponent of this deck. Otherwise, this deck will easily clear your stack while incidentally clearing boards that could threaten it, because its bouncing removal just works as it's already going for its initial game plan. It doesn't have to work extra to get these bouncing effects. This deck can easily defeat any deck without any interaction from their opponent, and just its raw power and raw aggression keeps this deck as a top pick for going into the BT10 meta. Anyway, that's going to be my top 5 decks, along with a couple honorable mentions going into the BT10 format. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something, found it informative, or found it entertaining, and I will catch you all on the next one. Make sure to do the YouTube thing down below, and I will see you all later. Peace out.